Hey there, welcome. My name is David Olds, and as promised, this is going to be a free course that I'm going to record for you, and hopefully you're going to watch it and get a lot out of it. And my goal here is to teach you some of the basics of real estate investing and how you can start with very little money down. And when I say no money or very little money, there are going to be some strategies that we're going to talk about that might involve you driving for neighborhoods looking for distressed properties. So there is maybe some gas involved there, or mailing some letters. So there is some postage and letters and ink, right? So I don't want anyone to come and say you said no money down, but I had to go buy 25-cent stamps. So so just so you understand that's what I'm talking about when I say almost no money down. But so let's get started here just a little bit. So why should you listen to anything that I say? Am I just another guy that's on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and wherever it is that you found this link? So I've been an investor for 20 years. So this is 2022. My wife and I started all the way back in 2002. So it's been a long run, 20 years. Over that time, we've accumulated a lot of rental properties. At our peak, we had over 100. Now we're in the 70s. We've sold a few of them off. That portfolio is worth a little over $8 million right now. All of it is centered here in the Chattanooga, North Georgia area. We have wholesaled just a lot of houses, and we'll talk here in just a little bit about what wholesaling is and how you can do that. And that is probably the easiest entry point into real estate with no money down. So yeah, wholesaled lots of properties. So we have a lot of deals that come through our office and go back out. And some of those we've been lucky enough to be able to purchase ourselves, fix them up, rehab them, and then resell them on the market. Very similar to what you might see on HGTV, any of the Flip This House type shows. And those we've actually done with no money down quite often. And we'll talk a lot about how to do that. But one of the greatest things that has happened to us because we got into real estate and we legitimately got in with almost no money in the bank, like we did what you might hear people talk about. They call it bootstrapping, right? We found a way to make this business work with no money. But through that growth that we went through, starting with wholesaling and working our way up into rehabbing and purchasing properties to build our own portfolio, which my goal is to have this legacy wealth that we have created and to pass down to our children and grandchildren. Within that, we've been able to build a bunch of other adjacent businesses that go along with it. So we have our wholesaling, our flipping business. We have rental properties. We have our fix and flip rehabs. We also own a transaction company where we serve real estate investors across the country. And then, we have other investments in oil and gas and crypto and NFTs and some other things. But all of that does come from our wholesaling business that we started with zero down, really no money. So here's a picture of our team. And that is really one of the things that we're most proud of is the team that we've been able to build over the years that believe in us and believe in our shared vision. And, even when I'm not in the office, that they are here and, they're taking part in everything that we're doing here and obviously reaping a lot of those rewards. So yeah, very, very proud of the team that we built. I really do feel like they're one of the best in the entire wholesale industry. We are certainly lucky enough to be at the top of that, that little pyramid of companies. We're not doing the most, but we're doing pretty well. So all that's really great, and it sounds awesome, but it wasn't always like that. So many times I think people on social media, they just want to tell you all of the good stuff and never any of the real stuff. So let's do that for just a minute. So the way that we got into this business, it's a funny story. I was at the Orlando airport, and I was waiting on our sons to fly in, and I was killing some time, so I was in the bookstore and I was sort of wandering through there and just again killing time, right? So I picked up this book and I was just like this, kind of leaning on the shelf reading it because I had 15-20 minutes to spare before I had to get out to the gate. And I'm reading this book, and it wasn't super long. I maybe read 5-10 pages. I'm like, wow, this is a really great book about business and real estate. And I bought that book and picked up the kids, went home, and just really devoured it over the next day or two until I finished it. And that book was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So if you have not read that book, I'll just stop this video right this minute, go over to Amazon, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. There's a couple different versions of it. Buy it. There are some places where you can get free downloads. People offer it. But definitely read that book. It's going to open your eyes to a whole world of real estate and investing that you probably never realized was there if you're new to real estate. So anyways, I bought this book, and at the very end, he talks about different ways to invest. And the idea is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He had these two fathers. One was kind of the blue collar 9-to-5 type guy, and the other rich dad was an investor, and he really opened Kiyosaki's eyes into how he can become an investor and have money working for him instead of him working for money. So I won't spoil it. Definitely go read that book. But at the end, Kiyosaki says, if you want to be in real estate, you should go find a real estate group like a meetup or a RIA, which is a real estate investment association. So, I've never been the smartest guy in the world, but I'm really good at following directions. So I jumped on my big computer, and it was on those big old monitors. And this is 2002, so there was no Google, no Facebook, none of that. It was like web crawler, real estate group. And I remember I did a quick search, and this, got all the results there. And I clicked on this guy's link, and I had been around real estate enough to know that this guy was a wholesaler. So I was looking at properties that he had for sale, and then he had this tab that was like a resource tab or something. So I click on that, and I go down. It's like, CFRI.net, which you can go to that site now. CFRI.net, which is Central Florida State Real Estate Investors. Central Florida Real Estate Investors.net. And so I clicked that, and it said, hey, we're the largest real estate group in Central Florida, which at the time I lived in Apopka. Yeah, Apopka. And, we have these meetings once a month. So I'm like, okay. And I remember it was July. So I told my wife, I'm like, I'm going down to this meeting. So, Apopka to downtown Orlando is about a 40 minute drive, I guess, depending upon traffic on a Wednesday night. And I'm like, okay, I'm going down to this RIA. I'm going to see what this is all about and learn about real estate. And so I drove down there. And it was at the old Bumby Theater in downtown Orlando. I'm not sure if that's still there, but that was a place that they rented out once a month for these big meetings. And so I pull in the parking lot, and this is back in the early 2000s. So everybody had car decals and windows, decals in the window and car wraps and all that stuff. And we buy houses and home inspections and hard money and loans and investor loans, like all this stuff, right? I didn't know what any of it meant at the time, which you may not know what any of that means either. But, there was probably like 200 cars in this parking lot. And I'm driving through, and I'm looking for a spot to park, and I'm getting just more and more anxious. I'm like, so the doubt starts running through my head, the fear and the doubt and my God, I don't belong here. What am I doing? Just because I read some dumb book, I shouldn't be here. These are all like professionals. I'm going to look stupid. Oh, looking for my spot. Drove right out the other side of the parking lot and went home. And, I got home. My wife's like, well, how was it? I'm like, couldn't find it. I can count on one hand in 20 years probably the number of times I've not told my wife the truth, and this was one of them. So I felt terrible, right? I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I went down to do this thing and didn't complete it. So the reason I remember it was July is because I didn't go in August, and then September was my birthday, so I was fired up. So now I'm pissed. Like, I've had 60 days to think about this, and the whole time, like, I'm driving down there and I'm going. So I don't know if you've ever been in that position, but I'm driving down there like white-knuckled, like I'm like psyching myself up the whole time, like I'm gonna go, I'm doing this. And so I get down there, like I park in the first spot, get out, like I'm not waiting, like I'm doing this. And I walk up to the window and I pay my $10 or $20, whatever it was, to be a guest. And, like just hyping myself up the whole time to not quit, right? Because like we get scared and, our minds plays tricks on us. And for me, maybe you're not like that. But anyways, so I go inside and it's, you know, it's a theater. So they've got this lobby, and there's all these vendors set up, and you know, they're giving stuff away, standing behind there, wanting to talk to you. And some people are lending money, some people are selling houses, you know, selling courses, whatever. Like there's probably 10 or 15 people, and like there's like 100 people in this lobby, and I don't know what to do. So I see someone pick up a bag and just start collecting pens and pencils and rubber balls and, you know, all the things that they're giving away at these tables. And like I just do what everybody else is doing. I'm like, okay. So, you know, trying not to talk to anybody because I'm afraid, right? Because I don't know anything about real estate. What if they talk to me and realize I shouldn't be here? And so I go inside, and big theater, right? And I sit way back. I remember specifically sitting way back in the left-hand corner, away from everybody, where nobody would talk to me because, you know, again, felt like I didn't belong there. But, you know, they get the meeting started. I pull out my notebook and ready to start taking notes because I'm here to learn. So I'm going to, you know, learn what this real estate thing is all about. So interesting, and I'll remember this forever. So one of the first things that they do at this meeting is they have what's called Deal of the Month. Like, okay. So they announce, hey, we're going to bring up 4 people who did a deal that closed in the last month, and they're going to talk to you about the deal. And then at the end, by show of applause, you know, the best deal, the person who had the best deal is going to win and get like a $100 Home Depot card. I'm like, cool, well, this will be great. This should be educational. So I'm watching. First guy comes up. I got my pencil ready. I'm like, I'm ready. Like, I'm going to get all the notes. So guy comes up there, and is like 75-year-old guy, like 80 pounds, soaking wet, literally overalls and a white T-shirt, you know, everything, you know, the old Southern guy, right? Everything so stereotypical, everything but like the corn sticking out of his mouth, right? The whatever it is, the grass seed. So anyways, he gets up there and he's like, hi, my name is Bob. And literally, I shit you not, everybody in the place is like, hey, Bob. I'm like, where in the fuck am I at? Like, this is a big AA thing? Like, what is this? And so anyways, old Bob starts. And he says, so I was driving to North Carolina, go on vacation to see my kinfolk. I'm like, oh, God, what am I doing here? And I'm like, okay. So Bob, writing it down. And he says, yeah, so I got off the highway, and there was this house for sale. So I stopped to look at the house, and he wanted like $60,000. I told him I could pay him $35,000, and he told me no. So I left him my business card and told him to call me if he changed his mind. And I got back in my car and went to see my kinfolk in North Carolina. And I was driving home 2 weeks later, and he called me, and I was past his house, but I turned around and went back, and we made a deal, and I bought that house, and I found me a contractor to fix it up, and you know, I came back to Florida, and house was fixed up, and I listed it on the market, and I sold it for $110,000. I don't remember exactly what the numbers are, but I'm sitting there looking at old Bob. I'm like, Bob weighs like 85 pounds. He's 75 years old. Talks like he has marbles in his mouth. And that dude just cleared like 50 grand in 2002 on a house that he didn't even remodel himself. He just bought it and had somebody else do it. And I'm like, holy shit. Damn. It's pretty neat, writing this all down. So Bob gets off the stage. Girl comes up, beautiful Russian girl, like 25. She starts talking, barely can understand her because she's got this Russian accent. And she's talking about how she's flipping mobile homes all over Orlando, 3 or 4 a month for like $5 grand a piece. And I'm looking at this girl, and I'm like, holy smokes. These people are making real money. I don't even remember what the next 2 people said. I don't remember, because I sat there for the rest of the night thinking, like, I feel like I'm a relatively smart guy, you know, graduated high school. And these 2 people, like, who you would meet any place and go, like, one's an old dude and the other one barely speaks English, and they're crushing it, making a ton of money. If they can do this, I can do this. And that was one of those points that you'll probably have in your life, but I've definitely had in mine, where I look back all the time and I'm like, there are definitely people who are not that smart making a lot of money in real estate because they pick something and they do it really well. So anyways, definitely a turning point moment for me. The meeting was over. I went outside and I signed up for the rest of the year, and I got really involved in real estate. And the great thing about, I was really lucky to join the CFRI. Turns out it was one of the biggest ones in the country, but they had always had a meetup or something, like literally 4 nights a week, someplace in Orange County or Volusia County or in the surrounding counties there. There was always something going on. There was a group for real estate and taxes, landlords, flippers, wholesalers, land development. There was always something going on. So I got super involved and really immersed myself in real estate. And, if you're starting something new, that's always what it takes, right? You have to get really dedicated and put as much time into it as you possibly can. And I started just learning a lot about real estate. And in that time, we started buying some more houses, fixing, flipping, selling. And we did this through the 2000s. Not a ton, because my wife and I both had real jobs still. I worked for a building supply company. My wife was a superintendent for a home builder. So, we're doing all those things. And then 2006, 2007, 2008, things start to slow down a lot. And we sort of sensed that this was happening. And, looking back, you can see now, oh my goodness, it was the Great Recession, it was all these things. But when it was happening and you were in the middle of it, it just feels like things are slowing down a little bit, right? Slowing down, and then of course it went off the cliff. So we were looking at other markets maybe to start working and doing real estate and buying properties. And, we decided on Chattanooga, which is where we are now. So we knew within the next year, we're going to relocate and go to Chattanooga. We had done some research and, we decided this was where we wanted to be. So, it's sort of like musical chairs. We're going to buy one more house and remodel it. And we're going to take that money and quit our jobs and move to Tennessee. It's going to be great. It's a perfect plan. So we bought this probate property, which probate just means somebody had passed away and we bought the property from their estate. So we bought this property in Deltona, Florida on Trafalgar Street, 742 Trafalgar Street. You can look it up. Basic little 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch with a 2-car garage. Very typical Central Florida house, probably built in the late 80s, early 90s. And it was very easy to comp, right? I think we bought it for $97, $99, something like that. The same property, 1 block over, 2 blocks down, identical. Every 100% identical, same builder, same everything, had just sold for $214,000. So this is in early summer 2008. Things were just about to start getting really interesting in real estate world, but we didn't know it, right? Because nobody can look into the future, no matter what people on Facebook say. So we bought this property, fixed it up, did everything. We were doing most of the work ourselves back then, scraping popcorn, putting down tile, new kitchen, knew everything. And finished it maybe in mid to late October. I called my realtor over and she's like, "You did a great job." I said, "I know. Looks great." I said, "Yeah, I know." I'm like, "What can we get for it?" So, this is back, remember, 2008, no internet, no fancy laptops or anything. So she pulls out all these papers. We're sitting at our kitchen table. She's like, "Well, I think you could probably get about $255 or $155 for it." I'm sorry, wishful thinking. $155. I'm like, "Shayna," her name was Shayna. I was like, "One street, $214. That was only 5 months ago, 6 months ago." Well, the market's changed a lot since then. I'm like, "It's been 6 months." Well, and she starts showing us, well, this one down at the corner, this was a foreclosure that had sold. This started happening. This, and this, and all these happened. And what had been going on was all those foreclosures that had been quietly being done in 2007, early 2008, were all starting to hit the market, and the banks were dumping them for next to nothing. So, being a new investor, and I really still was at that point, I'm like, my house is better than that. My house is remodeled. And let me tell you, when a crash happens, none of that matters. And she's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" I'm like, "Well, let's put it out at $165. And I thought I was being the most magnanimous son of a gun who's ever walked the face of the earth, right? I'm giving $40,000 off for this beautiful house that was remodeled. And it was beautiful. And she's like, this is, January, beginning of January. So she's like, okay, because a listing agent doesn't care. They just want your listing. She puts a sign in the front yard, out she goes. And so, sits on the market for like 5 or 6 weeks. And, I was used to flipping a house and selling it right away. So like once a week I would call her. I'm like, hey, so like what's going on? She's like, we're not getting any calls on it. What do you want to do? I'm like, leave the price, right? Because we were selling this house so we could take that money and come to Chattanooga. So, we probably had 15 or 20,000 in repair costs. So I'm like, boy, I want at least 30,000, right? 30,000 to go do something else. And in the meantime, while this was happening, I was coming back and forth to Chattanooga. My brother was working with me, which was awesome, and my wife, so really it was 3 of us. And we had picked up a couple of properties up here where we had bought with owner financing, no money down. And, so we're trying to sell this house in Florida. My wife, by this point, she's been laid off, and I had already told my job we were leaving, right, because I was expecting to sell this house pretty quick. So, it's been 4, 5, 6 weeks now, and I'm like, man, we got to drop the price. Like, we're getting closer to the summertime, and I need to get this house sold. So I dropped it to like 154, and I said, do you think that'll get it moved? And she's like, the market's gotten a little bit worse in the last month. I'm like, how much worse could it have been? It's been 6 weeks, because this was not typical, right? This was not normal. So she's like, I'll change it. So we changed the price, and so now, over the next month, because I wanted to give it at least a month, she got a couple calls, but like not even a showing. So now we're getting into March, and now I'm getting like really panicky. Like, because this is not the way this goes. So I dropped the price again to like 144.9, and finally, like, I got a couple showings, but no offers, because what's happened is over that time the markets just kept going down and down and down and down. And what's happening is, when you're priced too high in a dropping market, it's like a fat kid chasing a tennis ball down the hill. Like, every price drop, I couldn't get ahead of the market and how it was dropping. So 144, I get a couple showings, still no offers. And now I'm into like beginning of April. Like I was planning on being out at the end of May. So this is a problem. So I canceled my listing, and because I had been through a bunch of real estate classes, I started putting out some signs, and I said, well, I need to do this myself. No one's ever going to work as hard for you as you do, right? So I made these signs like, owner will finance this property, right? Because I knew how to do that. So I started putting out a bunch of signs all around the area, and I found someone to do a lease purchase. And basically what that meant is they would give me $5,000 down towards the purchase price. I think I might have put 165 on it, and they were going to pay me like $1,000 a month, which was like $20 or $23 over what my mortgage was. So big cash flow, big time investor, making $23 a month. But I needed to get to Chattanooga, right? Because I didn't have a job in Tennessee anymore. It was coming to an end, and we had already started doing some marketing and things in Tennessee, and it hadn't really taken off, but that was our plan, so that we were going to stick to our plan. So I got $5,000 down. We move out. This nurse moves in. We took everything we had in the house, packed it into a big U-Haul. And it was me, my wife, our 2 boys, and our 3 fat dogs. And I think it was June 9th, early on June 9th, that we left Deltona, Florida, and came to Chattanooga. And I'm telling you, 27 or 30 foot U-Haul driving 577 miles. It was a long ride. So I remember we got to Chattanooga, and it was like 3 in the afternoon. We had this property that I had looked at on one of my previous trips, and we were purchasing it subject to, which just means we were taking over the guy's mortgage. And I'd been to this house one time like 90 days before, and I don't know about you, but for me it had been a long time. So I had to envision this house being something better than it might have been. And so we go to the closing, we buy the house. It cost us like $400 or $500 to pay for the closing paperwork. We got this house. We were just going to take over the guy's payments. It's a great strategy. We'll talk about it here in a minute. But get over to the house now. It's like 7 o'clock at night. Everybody's exhausted. Like all we want to do is I'm there, my wife, the 2 kids, 3 dogs, my brother. We pull a couple mattresses out of this truck, drag them in the house. And now I'm realizing I might have thought this house was better than it really was. It was this old 1900s house and not the best part of Chattanooga, over in East Lake. So it's an old house kind of on the side of Missionary Ridge. The floors are a little unlevel, no air conditioning, old windows. Tried to plug a couple things in, like half the electric in the house wasn't working. It's a little crooked. Like we found like this mouse inside the house because it had been vacant for like 6 months. And I do remember just, trying to pull a fan out of the truck so we could plug it in. And just because it's summer in Chattanooga and it's hot and it's humid and this house has no air. And I remember just collapsing onto the mattress, just exhausted, and thinking about what in the fuck have I done? I left this beautiful house in Orlando. I could have gone and found another job, took my kids out of their school, brought them to a city where we really didn't know anybody. We didn't have any foundation, no support system, and left this beautiful property for this shithole. And I'm like, what have I fucking done? I'm gonna tell you, like, this is probably one of the lowest points of my life, imagining that, what have I done to my family, right? Because, if you're a dad and a husband, that's like your job to support the family. And I literally cried myself to sleep that night, just so upset with making bad decisions. But, like any entrepreneur, you gotta rally. So got up the next day and, the bad stuff was behind us. I'm like, okay, we're gonna make this work. How are we gonna do this? Okay, we're gonna start wholesaling. So we went out there and, we bootstrapped our way. We put out signs, we buy houses, went and knocked on vacant houses. We drove neighborhoods looking for properties that looked like they were boarded up. We came home, we sent letters. We just took massive, massive imperfect action. We didn't have everything figured out, but we went out and did it. Like we went out and did stuff. We did all the things that I had spent a couple years at the RIA meetings learning, and we went out there and, we put it all into action. And because we were so focused on this, all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, we get our first deal. Didn't make a lot of money, but we made $7,000. Oh, and the one thing I forgot to say, like the $5,000 that we had from the lease option lady when we came to Chattanooga, that's all we had. And that wasn't like $5,000 for business. That was $5,000 to live on. Like we still had to make the payments on this house. It was the summertime, so I had to do stuff with my kids for 4th of July and things. So $5,000 was it. So when you have $5,000 in the bank and that's it, and no guarantee of income, you get really fucking motivated quick. So we went out, we did our first deal, and then we did another one, and then we did another one, and it's $5,000, $7,000, $10,000, $2,000. All of a sudden we started stacking up those checks, and in that first year we did over $100,000 just in the last 6 months. So, what that enabled us to do was, like we talked about in the beginning, we started growing, right? We started doing wholesaling, but every single thing started from getting up that first day and saying, okay, let's find a way to make this happen. So these are some of the companies that we own now. Of course, Nationwide Property Liquidators is our wholesaling company. We own a petroleum company, the oil and gas company, house buying company, our coaching company, the transactions company, our rentals. So we own a bunch of different companies, and these are just some of the houses that along the way we were able to buy. But none of it started without getting up that day and taking action and being focused on every day going out and making sure that we were working towards our goal, right? So it wasn't a once in a while thing. Oh, I'm going to do this for 1 hour a week. No. At the point where we were getting started, because we didn't have jobs, we came here for real estate. So real estate was the first thing I thought of when I woke up in the morning. I got in my car and I had to go out and find houses to buy. If nobody was home, if I knocked on the door, nobody was there, I wrote down the address, I came home, and my wife would be sending out postcards and letters to people every single day. That was what we did. It was, it was the most important thing in our life, was finding a way to get this business off the ground. So we put out those signs every week, those We Buy Houses signs. So, people often ask us, well, what was it like in the beginning? Well, it was a lot of fucking work. Because one, I had no mentor, so I didn't have anybody to teach me all of this. We had to just go out and figure it out. I guess before Instagram Reels and TikTok and YouTube and all those things, right? But I do remember every Friday night, we went out and put out 100 signs that say we buy houses all over town. And you don't think 100 signs sounds like a lot, but it'll probably take you about 4 hours to do, even with 2 people. Like one person stopping, somebody jumps out, puts it on the street corner, you drive and you do the next one. And we put those out every Friday, right? Whether, there was a movie we took our kids to, or we were out to dinner, or it was snowing or raining, or, we either did it at like 8 or 9 o'clock, or if we had something else that we had to do, we went out at 1 in the morning and did it. But we did it religiously every single week. We had a plan, we stuck to the plan. And over time, that starts to generate results, right? So this real estate isn't the kind of business where you can do it 1 week and go, I should be rich at the end of the week. It's just not like that, right? There are certain things in real estate, and we'll talk about them in a minute, that generate results faster than others, but it's going to take some repetitive, action from you. So yeah, so these are some of the properties that we've been able to acquire, over the last really, 13 years, because it's 2002, we came here in 2009. So there's an assortment of single families, some apartment buildings, duplexes, triplexes, all kinds of different properties, some in good areas, some in not great areas, but we bought a lot of them, and we have a tremendous cash flow every single month. So so that's a little bit about me, kind of how we got started. I don't really love telling that story, but I think it's important to understand that no matter where you're at, no matter how much money you have to dedicate to this, you can do it, right? You can 100% do this with literally almost no money. I promise you, we did that. We're a product of that. We didn't start this with like my daddy's $1 million or something like that. My parents didn't have that kind of money to invest in us and our business. So, if I'm telling you that, these are the ways that you could do this with no money, I assure you these are things that I've done, and you can do it too. So that's the end of this kind of little intro. Let's get into the next module, and we're going to start talking about some real meat and potatoes.